my name is Wumi, and in this video I'll be showing you how Orchestrate works. Orchestrate is a fintech infrastructure that helps businesses scale their payment stack in minutes. Multiple payment providers across multiple countries have already been integrated into Orchestrate, from Paystack to Mono, Stripe, Fluidcoins, Coinbase, Flutterwave, and many others. This way, you don't need to go through the hassle of integrating each payment provider from scratch into your app. All you need to do is simply integrate Orchestrate, and you'd have instant access to all the payment methods you'd ever need across multiple countries. So let's get into it. The Orchestrate dashboard has multiple sections. The Get Started page pretty much shows you the things to do to get started. The dashboard shows you a snapshot of everything that's happening on your account, how your customers are paying you, what payment methods you're using, what payment providers you're using, the weekly performance. And the payment providers tab is pretty much where you spend most of your time, because this is where you have access to all the payment providers you would need, and this is where you can enable, disable, add a provider, and switch your providers. To start with, let's look at all the payment providers that we currently have on Orchestrate. So these are all the payment providers we currently have, from crypto payment providers to card to USSD to bank transfers to buy now pay later to direct debit to wallet. We have all of those here, and this list is ever increasing. So by the time you're watching this video, there might be a lot more payment providers here. We currently support 5 countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, the United States, and Egypt. Now, I already have some payment providers already enabled, but we're gonna add 1 or 2 payment providers just so you see how that's done. To add a payment provider, I will click on the Add a Provider button, and I'll select what country I want to enable this payment provider for. This is essentially what country your customers are paying you from. I'll select the country, which is Nigeria. I'll select the payment provider I want to enable. I'll select Mono, and then I'll pick the payment method, which is direct debit. Now, this is the point where I explain very briefly what use my API keys and use Orchestrate API keys mean. So Orchestrate isn't a payment processor. We're simply a platform that gives you access to the payment processor. So what this means is that you still need to have an account with the payment provider you want to use. So if you want to use Paystack or Flutterwave to collect card payments, that means you need to be signed up on Paystack or Flutterwave. If you want to use Mono or Stripe or Coinbase, same thing, you need to have an account with these payment providers. Now, we understand that that can be a hassle. That can take days, months, getting the verification process done, registering your business in these countries. We understand that that can take time, and so we decided to build something that we call the shared providers. Now, shared providers is you using Orchestrate provider account to receive payment from your customers. Instead of having to create a Paystack account, you can simply use Orchestrate's Paystack account. If you want to collect payment from your customers in the United States and you want to use Stripe, you need to have your business registered in the United States before you can access a Stripe account. Now, if you don't want to go through that whole process, you can decide to use Orchestrate Shared API or Shared Provider rather to accept payments, and that way you have to click this button which says Use Orchestrate's API keys. We'll create a dedicated video explaining what shared providers mean and how it works, but for the purpose of this demo, I'll be using my own API keys because I have an account with Mono. Now I'll go to Mono and grab my API keys from my Mono dashboard and put it here. I'll grab my secret key and my public key and put them on my Orchestrate dashboard. Now this is my public key, and this is my secret key, and that's pretty much it. That's all it takes to enable a payment provider on Orchestrate. Now let's do this but for Stripe. So I'll go back and click the same button, add the provider. I'll select the country, United States. I'll select the payment provider, Stripe, and I'll select the payment method, which is card. I'll do the same thing. I would use my own API key. So I'll grab my Stripe API keys, both the secret key and the public key. This is my public key, and this is my secret key. And that's it. I've also enabled Stripe as a payment provider for my card payment in the United States. Now, the whole idea of having multiple payment providers as an option for your customers to choose from is to ensure that they never get to your app or your website and are unable to pay because your primary and only payment provider is down. This way, you lose out on that customer entirely because there's no way they can pay. But when you have multiple options for them to choose from, even if one of the payment provider is down, they can go back and select another payment provider to use. Now at Orchestrate, we have something we call AutoSwitching, which is really a technology that automatically switches your default payment provider whenever that default payment provider is down. So say for instance, we currently have Flutterwave powering our default as our default payment provider. We currently have Flutterwave as our default payment provider for bank transfer. But say for some reason bank transfer is down, we would automatically switch your default provider for Paystack. So this way, even if Flutterwave is down, Paystack immediately kicks in and takes that payment for you. Now this is what we call auto switching in Orchestrate, where we automatically switch your payment providers whenever we notice that there's a downtime. But this can also be done manually by you. So you can decide to come here and say, you know what, I want Paystack to power my bank transfer instead. And you click this button and click make default. And that's it. Paystack becomes your default payment provider. And you can literally do this for all the payment providers that have a backup. So Flutterwave is currently our default for backup for card. Flutterwave is currently our backup for card payments. We can decide to make it default, and that way when customers get to your storefront and it's time to check out, they see Flutterwave because it's your default. And you can always switch back. So let's make Paystack our default again. Make default. And that's pretty much how that works. Now, there are 3 ways you can integrate Orchestrate. You can use our API or you can use our checkout widget. So to use our API, you would be using the secret key. To use our checkout widget, you'll be using the public key. There's also a 3rd way to use Orchestrate, but we'll get to it in a moment. Now, there is also live mode and test mode on Orchestrate. So you can decide to use test mode when you're still playing around, trying to set up and trying to see how things work. But when it's time to go live and you want to process live payment from your actual customers, you can come to the bottom left of your dashboard and click test mode active, and it immediately goes to live mode. Now to go back to test mode, you simply just toggle that button again and it goes back to test mode. Now let's use our payment link to test payment. Payment link are simply a no-code tool on Orchestrate where you can easily create a link, share to your customers, and they can find the different methods of payment. To do this, you click on the create payment link here. You put in your link name, which is typically the product name or the service that this customer is paying for. You select the country, and the country that shows up when you click on this are basically the country that you've enabled a payment provider for. So I'll click on Nigeria and I'll put in the amount for my product. Now this can be left empty if it's for a donation. So say you want people to decide how much they want to pay you, you can leave this empty and then the customer puts in the amount they would rather pay. But because this is a product or a service that has a price, we'll put in an amount and I'll put in a description. And that's it. We create our payment link. Now, once this payment link has been created, you get a link that you share to your customer, and then the customer can open it and see how to pay. So because this is a test and we want you to check how it works, I'm going to open the link and I'm going to make payment. So this is where the customer puts in their name. Because this is a test, I'm going to use a specific email format. Once I put in my email address, I'm going to click on pay. Now you can see all the payment methods on all the providers that we enabled on our dashboard. We can see direct debit, we can see USSD, we can see bank transfer, we can see card, we can see crypto. Now the customer can then decide which is their preferred method of payment. For this demo, I'm going to click direct debit. Now it shows the mono widget. I'll click on continue. Now once this opens, it shows a list of all the banks that are currently available. I'll select my bank, which is United Bank of Africa, UBA, and I'll put in my my details. Now it will ask me for a PIN. I'll put in my PIN and I'll click on pay. And that's it. I've successfully paid 25,000 naira to this business. Now when you come to your dashboard as the business owner, you'd see a record of that payment that was just made to you. You go to your transactions tab on your dashboard and you can see that payment that just happened by Mono. You can see the email address of the customer, you can see the amount that was paid. There's also a reference that's generated and you can see that the status of that transaction was successful. If you failed, you would have seen failed here. So you get a record of every payment that is made on your account. You also get an email. When you log into your Mono dashboard, if you used your own dashboard, you'd also see a record of that payment. When you come to your customers tab as well, you can see that customer recorded here. So these are all the customers that have ever paid me, and the customer that just paid me is Phoebe, and you can see a record here. When I click on this button here, I can see more details about these customers. So when I click on that customer, I can see a record of all the payment they've ever made to me. So this is the first time this customer is paying my business, and that's why I can only see the amount that just paid. The next time they pay me, when I come to that customer's details, I would see an increased transactions. You can also see their phone number if you ask for it on your front end. You can see their email address, the customer ID. You can see the first day that they were added to your account, and really all their transaction history till date. You can also download these details. When you come to your customers tab, you can export the details by clicking this export button on the top right of your screen. You can also do the same for transactions. Now this is how Orchestrate works. It's pretty simple. You get to decide what payment provider you want to use. You can decide to delete a payment provider. You can delete the payment provider by selecting the payment provider and coming here to delete. You can also switch, as I showed you earlier. You can switch the payment provider from default to backup. You can enable a payment provider as well. So that's it. That's the end of this demo to show you how Orchestrate works. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and see you in our next video.